Hello everybody! It is time for another one of those end of the year videos. Hope you're not tired of watching them yet, because I'm very late with mine. Though I think I say that every year. But today I want to reflect on 2018, how my reading went this past year, did I meet any of the goals and guidelines I set for myself, and then I want to talk about my actual quantifiable reading goals for 2019, kind of changing things up again. Usually I like to do guidelines that shape my reading, but in 2019 I have some things I actually want to achieve. Let's get into it then with what my 2018 reading goals were. I'm going to be referring to my phone a lot because I'm ill-prepared and I have nothing memorized. So my first goal for 2018 was to read 10% in translation. So 10% of all the books that I read needed to be translated. I actually met this one and far exceeded it. My actual number turned out to be 17% translated, and a lot of this is because I reread Fruits Basket, which is 23 translated volumes of manga. I really enjoyed rereading that, and it certainly helped with the translation number. If I hadn't reread Fruits Basket, I would still probably have hit this. I only needed to read a couple more books to hit 10%, so it's all good. My next goal was to read 40% or more by non-American authors. This is counted by books, not by unique authors. So it ended up that 42% of the books that I read were by non-American authors. I always wish that this would be higher, but I can't be too unhappy with it because I did actually meet my goal and slightly exceeded. And then my next goal was to read short fiction, and I completely failed at this goal. I knew I was going to fail at it only a couple months into the year, so I pretty much ignored this one for all of 2018. My next goal was to reread books. At the beginning of the year, I didn't set an actual number goal to hit, but when I did my mid-year goals update, I decided that I should shoot for 15% for the entire year. And I also met that one. 16% of the books that I read in 2018 were rereads, and I'm very happy about that. It turns out that almost all of my favorite books of 2018 were rereads, so I would say it had a really big impact on the enjoyment I had in reading this year. And then we come to the last goal, which is kind of hard to explain. Basically, at the beginning of 2018, I wanted to learn more about my book buying habits and kind of rein in my book buying if I needed to. So I just wanted to be a bit more informed about my habits. So I began the year by saying that I wanted to just start tracking, like keeping a spreadsheet of all the books I buy, what's the number, what are they, how much they cost me, and then what books I got rid of and when, had I read them or not when I got rid of them. So these are the 3 questions that I set out to answer and the actual answers. How many books do I acquire? I acquired 159 books in 2018, 138 of them were physical books and 23 of them were ebooks. And as of right now, I have read 66% of those 159 books. How many books did I get rid of? I got rid of 136 physical books and I had read 71% of them. 58% of those that I got rid of were books that I bought myself, 39% were books that I received from other places or people for free, and 3% were freebies, which were things like picking up books off of free book tables and stuff like that. And then the last question is, how much did I spend on those books? Well, I spent $1,210.12 on books in 2018, plus an additional $256.26, which came out of my Worldcon trip budget. And this is something I failed to mention in my mid-year update on my goals because halfway through the year, taking the data I had already gathered about my book buying habits, I set 2 sub-goals. One of them was for the number of books that I acquire, physical books, to roughly equal the number of physical books that I got rid of, and I did do that. I was 138 gained, 136 discarded, so that's good. But the second sub-goal was to cap my book spending at $1,100 in the year. But I forgot to mention that my Worldcon trip budget included additional money for books. I kind of forgot that until I was actually in San Jose and was like, oh yeah, I have money to spend. I forgot to mention that. So I'm going to change that up in 2019 because it got a bit difficult to track where money was coming from, and I just need to simplify that across the board. I wasn't surprised so much at the number of books that I acquire. I mean, I've been tracking my book collection and library thing for well over a decade now. I have their charts of how my library's grown, so I can see roughly how many books I acquire in a year anyway. So that number didn't surprise me. What did surprise me is the money. And I'm sure that I actually end up spending more on books than some people do, not just because I buy a lot more books, I read a lot more books than a lot of people do. I'm dealing with a larger volume. But also, I have this thing about buying books new, especially if I'm at an indie bookstore or if I'm trying to pre-order books by authors that I want to financially support. So I end up paying more per book than I think I necessarily need to. I'm not really shopping for deals. I'm not really buying a lot of used books, and so that number is going to be higher. So even though I actually exceeded my cap by a little over $100, I'm not too sad because I thought it was going to be a lot worse, especially with the last book shopping trip I did in 2018 where I basically just gave up. Yeah, it didn't break the bank too badly, actually. Now moving on to 2019 reading goals. Like I said before, these are all very quantifiable goals, very different from some of the challenges I've set myself in previous years. And that's because there are some very specific things I want to achieve in 2019, and they are all thankfully things I can track my progress in spreadsheets. The first one is that I want to make quarterly updates and statistics videos again, and I also want to make more review videos. I've never done a goal quite like this about making content for this channel, but I really missed doing my quarterly updates because those were so helpful in previous years to just kind of refocus me on my goals and my statistics periodically throughout the year. It's something that just works really well for me. I also want to make more review videos. I recently looked up how many review videos I made in all the years I've been on BookTube, and that number has been going down steadily every year. It's very strange. So in 2018, I only made 14 standalone book reviews. And my goal for this one is that I just want to do more than 14. I might change this number when we get to halfway through the year, but I'm going to start off with just saying I want to make more than 14 review videos in 2019. The second goal is the big doozy for the year and the one that will be the absolute hardest. Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever set for myself. But this goal is to cut my book buying budget in half. So if I combine all the money I spent on books in 2018 and divide that by half, that leaves me with a budget of $750 in 2019. And I have to reserve a good chunk of this for August because that's when I go to Worldcon again and when I expect to spend a lot of money on books during that special occasion. So basically this budget breaks down to about $50 per month for books, with the exception of August, which will be about $200. There are things I can do to avoid spending money on books, and I will be trying to do those things more, but this is going to be really hard. Like, I've already blown a significant portion of my annual budget with the stuff I bought after Christmas. It counts in January rather than back in December 2018. But this is what happens when you have a budget and you don't use it wisely. Don't be me. My third goal is that I want to reduce my physical TBR pile to 50 books by the end of 2019. Right now, as of filming this, my physical TBR pile is at 93 books, and I don't just count each physical volume, I also count individual titles in omnibuses. So for example, I have a bunch of those yellow SF Gateway omnibuses. Each of those counts as 3 books because they contain 3 books rather than just the one single physical book. So when I add up all those, I do have about 93. That number is going to go up in January as I get some of my final post-Christmas book shopping packages, and then it should start going down over the year. And I've set myself some milestones, some things I can achieve on my way to getting down to 50 books. So here's what my plan of attack is. I want to read all the physical books that I acquired prior to 2017. This number is currently at 21 books. I want to read all the books, physical and digital, that I acquired in 2017, which is 39 books. And then I want to reduce all the books, physical and digital, that I bought in 2018 to 10% unread, and I'm currently at 33% unread, which is 44 books remaining. I also want to do the same thing I did last year, which is to read 2/3 of the books that I buy this year by the end of 2019. So I should end the year with having read a majority of the books that I bought. My fourth goal is about reading short fiction. I still have a bunch of subscriptions to short fiction magazines like Clark's World, Lightspeed, Uncanny, Strange Horizons, and places like that. So I'm going to make a goal I can track progress towards for reading short fiction. So basically I want to read 4 magazine issues per month, which is pretty much like 1 per weekend. I can totally do that. I also want to read 2 to 3 stories per month from other places that don't publish issues, like Tor.com or Fireside Fiction. I would like to talk about short fiction more regularly and consistently like I used to, so I hopefully will bring back my favorite short fiction videos again. I'm not going to commit myself to anything right now. I want to find a good rhythm for reading short fiction first before I decide how I want to make videos about that. And the 5th and final goal I have for 2019 is to finally finish my Clark Award Winners project. Back in the beginning of 2017, I started reading all of the winners of the Arthur C. Clarke Award, and then I kind of petered out at the end of that year and I didn't read anything for that project in 2018. But I only have 4 books plus a 5th, whatever wins in 2019, left to read, and I own them all. So this will also overlap with reading books that I own, which is one of my other goals, of course. So it's achievable, I just have to sit down and actually do it. That is it for looking back at 2018 and what I'm going to be doing in 2019. Let me know if you have any thoughts on these goals, past or present. Let me know if you've set any reading goals for yourself as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. And until then, bye.